you have a disagreement, can't reconcile it, right? How do you figure out who ultimately is going to have the say?
I don't know. I mean, I've been in a relationship for 15 years and that's never happened. There's never been a decision that there was an impasse. And if there was anything that was even close to that, we tabled it until there was a mutual decision.
Yeah, but the problem is like, what if it's not a mutual decision? It's like, no, I'm not backing down on this.
Well, then how well do they really communicate?
Correct, right?
How well do they really communicate? Because the reality is, if you care about the person, especially you're talking about specifically a marriage, the whole goal of conversations where you disagree is to let the other person feel heard, understood, and respected. And if both people are receiving that and there's safety involved, you're going to be able, maybe not that moment, maybe not that day, to come to a conclusion that feels really good to the both of you, where it doesn't have to be, it's my say-so because I say so and I'm the lead. And I think that's where the ego gets in there, and it can go wildly wrong. Whereas a man who, if we're going back to the man as leading, and a man in his like healthy masculinity, it doesn't come from a place of ego. It comes from a very confident place where he knows who he is, and he cares very much for the other, for the partner, for the wife. And so he gives a whole lot of hecks. I cuss a lot, so I should filter it, about her being on board with him. So it's a mutual exchange of, again, being heard, understood, and respected. There's not going to be this, okay, I get the final say. That's like a child, which unhealthy, but that is like a child-parent relationship to me.
Oh, okay. Well, that's nice and all, but it doesn't actually answer the question. So I understand that you're saying there should be mutual respect. We should both feel heard. We should both discuss things, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, great. So you've discussed everything, and he still disagrees with you and thinks, no, you're incorrect, and I'm just really not willing to budge on this. So either we have one of two choices, right? Either the relationship is over because you won't budge, or he won't budge, or you won't concede, or what? What's the other option? You would have to concede to the authority, right? Like, I don't see any way around it.
I don't understand this though. I thought relationships were all about compromise.
Yeah, I think the answer that you're looking for would be answered if you gave us like a specific scenario instead of just being like, who gets final say, because it like
super broad.
It's way too, like, if you ask a very specific, like, give us a specific scenario, like, I think you'll get the answers that you're looking for.
I mean, the specific scenario wouldn't even be relevant, but I'll give you one just to give you one, I guess.
I think that would.
So there's money, there's money, there's an inheritance of $100,000, okay? It's left to both of the members of the household, not just one, okay? And they're arguing about how to spend it. And the man is saying, okay, listen, I've heard all of your reasoning. I've heard all of your everything, right? I'm hearing you, right? I'm compassionate towards you, but also no, we're going to spend it on this instead.
Why would that is not a relationship?
Why would it not just be split? I don't. To me, it's sent to both of them. It's $100,000. They each get 50, and they can do what they want with it.
Yeah, and also in this scenario, are there kids?
No.
Like, it
so
really.
He's saying no, right? He's saying, look.
Well, that's kind of
no. He's saying no. I don't want it split. I want it going towards whatever this household thing is.
So already, I don't have respect for the
That's
person
a divorce.
doing that.
Yeah.
That's
right?
a
Because
divorce.
This seems like such a stupid question.
Yeah, it's about like respect, not about like you can't just give one person ultimate power, and it really once again depends on the situation. Like, it's a partnership, it's a relationship. You both talk about it. And like, depending on the situation, maybe someone will make the final say, but it depends, and you still have to have that conversation, and you still have to have that respect.
Yeah. So then in this situation, we're talking about authority then, right? The man really doesn't have any authority, because ultimately, if he says, listen, this is super important to me, and I know it's super important to you too, right? But I'm not willing to budge on it because I really think I'm right here. You feel in that instance it's totally appropriate for you to, and I quote, that's a divorce, right? So then this would infer that you actually have a lot of power in this situation, a lot of power in this dynamic that a man wouldn't have or wouldn't exercise. So if that's the case, right, it would basically make men want to steer clear of marriages like that, right? Because the position of authority would not actually be there.
Yeah, well, I'm saying divorce in terms of if he came up to you and he was like, this is what we're doing, you don't get a say, like, that's how you kind of like, or that's what I took from it the first time that you mentioned it.
No, he listened to what you had to say. everything you
well
had to
then-
say.
yeah, 'cause if-
he just thinks that what you had to say is incorrect, and that ultimately it needs to go the way that he wants it to go because he thinks you're incorrect. So if that is the case, right, then if we're still in divorce territory, then what you're doing.
I never
is
said we
saying
were
that-
still in divorce territory.
I would say
Yeah,
that you
right.
have to recognize everyone's skill set, right? So let's say that the woman tends to be better with money in this example, and the man is better. I don't know. Let's say he's like a contractor, so he's not into investing, and the conversation is around like, what do we do with this inheritance? So if historically speaking she's been more accurate and more well versed in finances, that would probably go to her. And then if it was something in his wheelhouse, so it's just dependent on the person's specialty, I think is probably
Yeah, but that's
the
not what's in
healthiest way.
dispute. It's not in dispute that these two people would have variety of skills. All those skills could be variously applied. There could be skills she's far better at than him. The hypothetical is looking towards, we're not able to compromise on this one thing, whatever it is. We're not able to come to an agreement, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're just not able to. So this would again state that there would have to either be somebody makes the concession, right,
Mm-hmm.
or you part ways. I don't see a way around that exactly.
Right, but then earlier you said no one's holding that position permanently, but you want one answer, like absolutely, like it's either absolutely the man or absolutely the woman, and then everyone that's asking for context.
No. This is a critique. That was a critique of your worldview. So I just conceded that even if it was the case that that both parties did not permanently hold this position, it still doesn't answer to the question of when you hit this impasse, right?
It's
how do you
whoever-
deal with it when one won't compromise because they both think that they're right? One person would have to ultimately be the person who was conceded to.
Right, and it's whoever excels in that dominion. So again, it's if it's finances, typically that ends up being the man, traditionally speaking. So if it has to do with money, it's going to be the man. If it has to do with the kids or people, I would say it's the woman.
Yeah.
Then
and if-
you're taking the feminist position. Then.
How's that
So the
feminist?
Because what you're doing is you're saying that there's a shared authority.
There's not, it's not necessarily authority, and I think that there is a difference between leadership and authority. Like leadership is looking for counsel, and it's not just dismissing anyone else.
How can you have authority or leadership with no authority? I don't even know how that's done.
It's
like
a relationship.
leadership to me implies that there's authority, that people are seeing you as an authority of some kind. They're looking to you as an authority of some kind. I'm not even sure that you can have leadership.
Because you're
as an
instilling
authority.
respect, and in that respect, the person is choosing to follow. That's the difference.
But even regardless of why they are, perhaps it's because you show them respect or something like this, they would still have to concede some sort of authority for leadership, right?
Would you like us to be in relationships where we cede to authority of a man?
It has nothing to do with what I would like. I'm just asking this
Kinda
question.
sounds like it
because
is,
rather-
I was just curious.
I don't actually think I'm getting an answer to
Okay,
it. So.
you want an answer? Here's your answer from all of us, from what I've heard, at least from the people talking. It depends on the situation. A relationship is a partnership. Nobody has absolute say over anything. And if you seriously are in an argument that's that deep and like you can't compromise and both people are not like, they're not willing to budge at all, then why are you in a relationship? Like the whole point of a relationship is you guys are equals, and yeah, you have different responsibilities. Maybe some people have different things that they focus on that they do. But at the end, it's not about gender. It's not about who has more power. It's about the situation. And like,
Well, that really wasn't, I mean, that's your view, yeah, but that really wasn't her view. Her view was she thought a man should generally lead, right? A man should generally be in a position of authority.
And they
but then
can.
when we hone in on it, it looks like more that there's a shared authority, which is more of a feminist position. So I understand your position. I get it. You were clear on the outset. You believe that men and women should share authority in a relationship. I get it. I understand. I'm not disputing that. I'm just looking at the idea of if you think a man should mostly have authority, I don't know what the hell that actually means if we reduce it to, well, unless he's not really good at it and then the authority moves over to the woman, I'm not sure how we even make these determinations unless you're ceding to your own authority. You
Well,
see what I'm
that's
saying?
because this has been like dragged out, and you're not accepting anyone's answer. So initially, my response it's trusting the other person. So yes, the man can absolutely lead, but there's a difference between a leader and a tyrant. So if you have the man that's leading and you respect his decision, you come to an impasse. What I originally said, which wasn't accepted, was that in my 15-year relationship, this has never come up, because in that dynamic, nothing has been at an impasse. And if anything was, it was mutually tabled until we could revisit it and come to an answer. So it wasn't me taking the lead.
I don't know why you're saying I don't.
Because
I
that
accept
answer wasn't accepted originally.
I accept that you're answering. I'm not accepting that you're giving an actual answer. So
that is absolutely an answer.
The question is not, in your personal life, have you ever had an impasse with a man or your husband or whoever? That's not the question. The question is, I'm not asking that.
I know.
Not asking about your personal situation, because I don't give a shit, right? The question is asking specifically, if authority is to be shared, if the dynamic is to be shared, then who ultimately makes the decision for who even gets to share the authority, right? If it's going to be you get to make that decision, then it can't really be that the man is in authority most of the time, because it would infer, there would at least be an inference here that you're sharing authority with him.
Yeah, you would decide that ahead of time. I think this goes back to communication. I think, and the fact that everyone's saying all relationships are different. I think if you're conversing about this with your partner ahead of time, it's like, hey, let's talk about authority. Let's talk about who gets the final say. Are there areas that you feel like you want the final say in? And how do I feel about that? Are there areas I feel like I want the final say? Like we talked about kids, money, all of those things. You can create so much, like eliminate so many problems if you just have communication on the front end and talk about what feels good for each person. It's going to look different in every relationship, but that would be what I say. There is just you're wanting this overarching umbrella, it sounds like, of like, this is the way it is, this is the way it should be. That's it. And it just doesn't really work, because
I haven't
all
told you
humans are
anything
different.
that I want. Like, all I'm doing is this. This is so that you know, okay? She made a claim. She said, most of the time, I think a man should be in a position of authority. So all I'm doing is exploring that idea by asking her, okay, but if the position of authority is actually shared, how's he really in authority? That's what
I said
we're diving
leadership.
into. Hang on. That's what we're diving into, right? I'm not disputing that you can make prearrangements with somebody for who has authority, who doesn't. I'm not disputing that you can't have long conversations and walks on the beach at night to make determinations about decisions in your life. I'm not disputing any of that. I'm just trying to determine who ultimately, if authority mostly should be in the hands of a man, gets to determine that authority then. And if it's you, aren't you really the authority?
I mean, I feel like, we've kind of said, like, like, we just keep repeating our answers. Like, sorry, that is not the answer that you're looking for. But, I mean, everybody's different. And, like, if someone's in a relationship where, like, the man is considered, like, head of the household, you still have to make those big decisions together. And, like, yeah, maybe he'll decide, like, what he wants to eat for dinner, or, like, something smaller. But I personally feel like, in terms of, like, really big decisions like that, you can't really have one person fully take over. But once again,
I understand that. So I've always understood your view. Your view is equality. Just so you know, your view is different than the view of the girl next to you, the girl next to her, the girl next to her. I'm only exploring one view of a person who's not you, right? So therefore, I would like her to answer the question, because she's her and not you, who has a different view. Hang on, who has a different view than she does. So back to her, I'd like to just, if you don't mind, if we can just finish this real quick. I'm actually still confused, right? So perhaps without the sisterhood getting involved with their view, which I don't give a shit about, and just your view, if it is the case that authority is shared, right, or not. In your case, you say the man should mostly be an authority.
Lead.
Are you the determiner of that?
No, and again,
well, then who is? Who is the determiner?
It depends on the subject. So there have been conversations where, and these are exact conversations, if it has to do with health, if it has to do with medicine, if it has to do with food, if it has to do with the kids, it is you. I trust you entirely to make these decisions. That has been conversations in my relationship. And then if it has to do with money, that's him all day. He'll ask me once in a while, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And then he ultimately does whatever he wants. Like, that's my dynamic, and I'm very happy with it.
You're ceding ultimately to your authority.
No, not at all. Because if I didn't want to do something with money,
well, hang on, you are. I'll show you. So if you say, If you're saying on all of these different situations,
No,
trust
he
you.
assigned them to me.
Okay, but the ones you assigned to him, let's say, right? I trust you to do these things, X, A, B, C, D, whatever it is, right? So what happens if you fail to trust him on one of these particular issues, right? You're still going to see to yourself, you, the person, as to whether or not this should be followed or not followed, which would actually put you in a position of authority,
That's
right?
never happened in my relationship.
I know. I'm not asking if it's happened. I'm just telling you that the consequence would be that you are still in a position of authority. You're
No,
ultimately
because
feeling your
I've
authority, not this.
relinquished that. It's with the agreed upon subjects. So if it comes
You
to money,
relinquished it based on your authority, though, and you'll bring it right back the second you need.
no,
to. That's
because
the point.
trust me, there have been plenty of financial bombs, and I have said it, and I have disagreed till I was blue in the face, and he still pressed forward, and I let him do that, and I did. It's not like
Yeah, you let him.
Yeah, because I could choose to nag. I could choose to
Right.
make his life a nightmare. I'm not, right? Because that is, so that if you want to use your terminology, that is submitting, right? That is letting him lead, right?
Yeah, it's not really in the case of this. It's still the question is still kind of who has the authority ultimately, because if you just say, well,
Circular
I will
argument.
cede these things over because I want to, because I choose to, this and that, it actually doesn't really infer authority. Like, you're not really giving him
Guys,
the say of, for instance, let's say you're in a Christian marriage. The gal here, the deconstructionist, she can probably confirm this, right? The belief there would be that the man is in authority regardless of what your personal viewpoint is on what it is that he's doing, right? You were supposed to cede the authority to him. So the question here is rooted, who has ultimate authority? Is it you or him? If you're just ceding it to him because you want to, then it would imply that you still have kind of authority.
Well, in the Bible, it does talk about submitting to each other. A man and a wife should submit to each other.
Yeah, sure. I'm giving you an example of a view. That's it. So that I can explain, when we're talking about authority means in charge, not in charge because you allow it. That's the point.
Well, we live in a country where relationships only exist because of consent. So you're talking about allowing, it is allowed, because now we're getting into non-consent territory.
Yeah, so in this case then, the position of authority for a man is make-believe.
It's not make-believe. It's be a strong enough man, have follow-through, be competent and confident so that you have a woman that follows you.
A man is physically larger. So everything that you do technically is because he's allowing it, right? Because he could physically stop you.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
So anyway, so yeah, when we're talking about authority though, it would just seem to infer then that men don't, even if you are saying, I'm following you because of X, Y, Z reason, right? You can retract that anytime you want. It's not really a position of authority. Like, for instance, if you were in a workplace, right? You couldn't go to your boss and be like, you're not the boss anymore.
No,
Right?
but if
You couldn't do that. The only thing you could do in that case is leave. You know what I mean? But you couldn't usurp the position of authority, right? Because that would infer that you were actually the boss. If you could go to your boss, say you're not the boss anymore, I'm the boss. Who actually has the authority? See what I'm saying?
Yeah, but so do you think
that's
that
the
there's
point.
not a distinction though between a work relationship and a romantic relationship? Like the duties aren't different and how you show up and what you're looking
Yeah, sure.
for?
Yeah, sure. I'm not talking about those things. I'm just talking specifically about authority here. Who has authority in relationships, a threshold breaker.
I know, and I guess
it'd be the same thing with a boss is like in a workplace. Who has the authority in a workplace? It's your boss, not you, right? So it'd be the same thing.
do you see authority and leadership as exactly identical? Because that's the thing that's kind of making
they're not identical. I just don't think. I think that leadership implies authority.
Are you trying to figure out where the power lies? Like, are you trying to point that power fundamentally lies in somewhere?
Yeah, I don't think that men, when women say that, my man has the authority or this type of thing, I don't know that that's actually the case, because it seems that the authority is granted from them, the authority. So it almost seems circular.
Just to clarify your position, what would be an example of something where a man truly has authority?
He's your boss at work.
So in a romantic relationship, I mean.
Yeah, but that's not what you asked. You asked what would be a position.
I know I asked it,
where
but
they have
I used the words wrong. My
authority.
intent was.
I think in the West, I would be hard pressed to give you an example of where a man truly has authority.
Okay.